Mr. James Bascom, the Assistant Director of the TFP Student Action, is on with us today to talk about the Green Communist Revolution and how we should be concerned about the environmental movement and how it's taking over not just the culture, politics, but even in our faith. You won't want to miss this interview, so stay tuned.
So it can be very interesting and very scary times, but what is going on in the ecology movement, Mr. Bascom?
Well, I think it's important to make a distinction. There's legitimate Christian stewardship of the earth, which we're obliged to take care of the earth because it was given to man to rule, as we know from the book of Genesis. And St. Thomas also developed that very much, the responsibilities of man over the earth, over the planet, and so forth. But what we're seeing today is essentially a revolutionary ecology that is the natural development of socialism and communism. And you could say that this new ecology is, in fact, a new religion, if you will, that picks up where socialism and communism left off.
It is very concerning, to be sure, because there's a great push for, was it yesterday, I think it was, President Biden made this statement, I think it was sometime this week, he made the statement that the Joint Chiefs told him the number one threat to Americans was climate change. And so there seems to be a manipulation, a push upon us to really focus on this, and yet, for instance, we see that it's slave labor that works on renewable energies, like solar panels, for instance, or building the wind machines that get put out in the western part of the United States. And 80% of the materials that go into that are mined from mines that also have slave labor. So there's a lot of very questionable activities that go into the renewable energy, and to see the manipulation on top of that, the average person probably doesn't know where to go or what to believe.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of propaganda out there, a lot of misunderstanding, and just a lot of. You have to really go to the thinkers and the origin of revolutionary ecology, which began in the 1800s already. In fact, the term ecology, for example, was coined in 1866 by a German naturalist by the name of Ernst Haeckel, and his whole idea was essentially a Gnostic, neo-pagan conception of the earth as being a type of superorganism in which man was merely one component. So he was a radical Darwinist, he was a socialist, and he had this idea that all truth, that basically that nature is a God, that there is no God of the Bible, there is no Christian God. There's no God in the Christian sense of the term God, but nature is God, and that we are to essentially find truth and worship nature, essentially undoing what Christianity did, which was to build a society in which man rules nature, which is what, of course, God intended man to do. And so the root, if you will, of ecology, revolutionary ecology today, is to dismantle civilization, dismantle Western civilization, and to undo this inequality that God put in, that the Christian God put in Western civilization, which is man ruling over nature. They hate that. They want to destroy that, and they are succeeding in doing that. Of course, there's all this propaganda about we want to reduce pollution and so forth, which of course we're in favor of doing. But behind the propaganda, just like any other revolutionary propaganda, is a very evil philosophy, ideology, and religion that is showing itself more and more as we progress in the process. So neo-paganism, earth worship, all of this very devilish religion and philosophy is showing itself as we advance forward.
And that reminds me of the quote that Pope Francis said about a year ago when he said that God always forgives, man rarely forgives, but the earth never forgives. And this relationship between that and also the like I believe it was the Washington Post put out a climate confessional where you can have confess your climate sins. Like these things, they it feels like everyone's trying to turn the environmental movement into a religion. Do you see that, and what is that about?
Absolutely. It's Ernst Haeckel, when he founded his monist league in the 19th century, he it's a very Gnostic idea, and it's pantheistic and Gnostic. It's this idea that there is no Christian God, and that all beings have God in them. So we're all part of the same superorganism. Therefore, there is no difference between man, between animal, between the rock, the planet, a cell of bacteria, a single cell organism. We all have the same fundamental value. In fact, they even talk about it. We need to undo the Christian arrogance towards nature, right? So it's fundamentally egalitarian, and it wants to destroy that hierarchy that God put in creation. And in the 20th century, you may have heard the term deep ecology. It's one of these philosophies created by these radical socialists. Arnie Ness was the name of the one who coined that term, deep ecology, and it's the fundamental basis of all modern environmentalists. You mentioned deep ecology; they all know what that is, and they want to undo. They're very clear about undoing the Christian conception of man ruling over nature, and why that is it's a religion. It's a religion that wants to overthrow Christianity, and they use indigenous propaganda. So they promote the Indians as a way of showing a model that Western man can imitate. So that's one of the reasons why we saw the emphasis on the Amazon. Remember the Pan-Amazon Synod 2 years ago? People were saying, especially in the United States, what is this? Where is this coming from? The Pan-Amazon Synod? It's kind of confusing. Why are we...
Hold that thought.
Yes, I had the privilege of hearing Mr. Bascom's talk, The Green is the New Red, and it was an excellent talk. And one of the things that really struck me was where you were talking about how the communist revolution under Stalin and the Nazi revolution under Hitler both had environmental ideologies built into them already at that time. And I had never heard this before, and it blew my mind. Could you speak on that a little bit?
Absolutely. It's a lot more apparent in Nazism, National Socialism, than in communism, but they both are very much there. Marx and Engels both in the 19th century wrote that the earth and nature and man form a unity, form a oneness. It's a Gnostic belief. Our founder, Professor Plinio Kohei de Rivera, the TFP founder, he wrote a book called Revolution and Counter-Revolution, and he describes the revolution as Gnostic. So they have a very Gnostic religion behind communism. And there are several quotes I have where Marx and Engels both refer to the need for man to kind of reunite, as it were, with nature. But with National Socialism, it's even more explicit. Many people don't realize that the Nazis were actually very ahead of their time as far as the ecological revolution. For example, they were the very first to create laws, or animal rights laws. They had this idea of creating. They had this. It was part of their blood and soil philosophy. If you've heard of that, the blood and soil philosophy of the Nazis, where they saw the German people as forming a type of superorganism with the territory of Germany, with the animals, the environment of Germany, the geographical location of Germany. And so it's a very pantheistic idea that they had, in which they want to essentially destroy all elements that interfere with the German people unifying, if you will, with the place of Germany. And one of the obstacles to that, of course, is Christianity. In fact, people don't realize that Hitler himself was a vegetarian. Mm-hmm. And he did not, he had a plan. You can actually, there are books written about this, where he wanted to eventually ban the consumption of meat.
Wow.
Sounds familiar.
After the war.
We've been listening to this recently.
Yeah, because meat consumption, this is a remnant of Judaism and Christianity, where we can just use animals as we see fit. It was the Germans were actually the 1930s. Germany was very much into developing organic food. They were way ahead of their time.
One thing that you mentioned that I wanted to explore further, you had snuck in the premise that animal rights was not necessarily a good thing. And so why would it be that animal rights are not necessarily a good thing? I mean, I'm thinking of like Greta Thunberg coming out saying that fish have feelings and fish have friends. And this is a common trope in movies and TV shows. They anthropomorphize animals, make animals seem like they're humans. They have human ideas, human feelings. They love me. My dog loves me, kind of ideas. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's based on this false idea. Of course, St. Thomas himself speaks against that very much, that animals don't have rights. Animals don't have, humans have rights. We have rights. God has rights. Intelligent creatures have rights. Animals do not have rights. They were created by God for man to use in an upright way, according to right reason, for his necessities on earth. That's the purpose that animals are created for. That a fundamental difference between revolutionary ecology and the Christian stewardship is that Christians, Catholics, we see animals on the earth as being created for a purpose, and that purpose is our salvation, our physical necessities, in order for us to give glory to God.
And so the argument would be, we'd lob back at you. They'd say, "Oh, but so you're saying that it's okay to kick puppies?"
Well, of course, that's obviously not true. We can't abuse the creatures that God gave us to use, because that would be, as St. Thomas says, that would be an offense against our dignity, not against the animal's dignity, but against our dignity as intelligent creatures, abusing and misusing creatures that were given to us to use according to our right reason.
It's interesting because I hunt. And we're meat eaters. We love to eat meat, and I like to, provide my family with the most leanest possible meat on planet Earth. And so we hunt every year, and we butcher ourselves and all of that. And many times in my hunting career now, I've been accused as being a bad Christian, bad Catholic, because how could I dare hurt God's innocent creatures when I could just simply go to the store and buy it? And and it just seems to me it illustrates the sheer ignorance, really, between our food, how food is prepared, where it comes from, and even sort of the whole process. Like, the people have a real lack of understanding of the entire process. They somehow think in their minds that the animals that go to the store and sold on styrofoam plates aren't really animals, and the animals in the wilderness are. I think this lends to what you were saying a minute ago about our true vocation as human persons on this planet is to be the steward of the planet and everything therein towards our greatest goal, which is salvation. And we don't really hear about this anywhere.
Absolutely. And it's already back in Genesis. God gives us the instructions of what to do, to fill the earth and subdue it. And you can only subdue the earth if you're given the mission of ruling the earth. And this fundamentally, the difference between Christian stewardship and where there's a revolutionary ecology is the revolutionary ecology is egalitarian. They do not accept that mankind has a right and a duty to rule over nature. That just as a father, rules over his, has the fundamental, the natural role of being the king, if you will, of his family. So too does mankind as a species, as a creature of God, have a right and a duty to rule over nature, and they do not accept that.
And what about, we have the people who say, I'm a dog mom, or we're dog parents, we're cat parents. And so is that what you mean by fathers, taking care of our children?
Yeah, it's very much, it's maybe a small manifestation of a process that's been going on for decades. This psychological warfare that's in television, in movies, that kind of slowly changed our mental framework, how we see ourselves on the earth, as in the universe. It's not overnight that these ideas have kind of permeated into society. It's been really over a century, even much longer, of kind of mental transshipment. This propaganda that has changed us to having much more concern for abusing animals than killing unborn babies, right? Which is very, very, it's not a coincidence that those people who are so concerned about animal rights have no concern for unborn babies. It's very interesting to see that connection.
Yes, I've had the accusation thrown at me when making pro-life arguments, and they'll say things like, "Oh, okay, you're against abortion, then are you going to go vegan then?" As if the life of a baby is equivalent to the life of an animal.
No, absolutely not. A baby's infinitely more than any animal, and it's part of the destruction of civilization, where we see this mentality whereby a baby is disposable, but save the whales or save the it's such a hypocrisy, because the issue, it's incredible. You may have heard this before. The issue is never the issue. The issue is always the revolution, right? So all these solutions we mentioned for renewable energy and all these things, they're actually dirtier for the planet than just normal energy. Like the windmills in Texas, the windmills all over the country, they're killing hundreds of thousands, even millions of birds. Eagles and so forth. But it doesn't matter. The intention is to dismantle what remains of the American economy.
Yes,
because they hate free market. Capitalism, the free market. They want to destroy that. They want to destroy private property. They use environmentalism to destroy farmers' rights and so forth. It's really a weapon in the war to destroy free market, private property, traditional American law.
Most electric cars today, they're charged through the old-fashioned fuel systems. Coal burning plants create electricity, and that electricity fills up electric cars, which only can travel 200 to 300 miles if they're lucky before they need a recharge. And how long does that take? And unless you're of Tesla, of course, and you get the superchargers, which again are just burning coal, in order to fill their cars up. It's mind-boggling, sort of. Again, to start going back to the conversation to wrap up, is the manipulation that's layered on top of this. We're called to be good stewards. We're called to care for the environment and the animals and creation, but this manipulation really needs to be called out. Mr. James Bascom, thank you for your time today. We're going to link up to your article over on the TFP Student Action website on this very topic. This is how the green ecology movement turned red. God bless you and God love you, Mr. Bascom. Have a great day.
Thank you, you too.
If you like that interview, then check out some of our other interviews that you think will be interesting. And make sure to like and subscribe and share this interview with those that you think will find this informative and inspiring. God love you.